A big thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this week's video.
Good morning everyone. I am just back in the Lake District, which is fantastic. With all my camper van stuff, I've just not got time to get out much. Got a life of its own, this boot. And recording this at the moment is the 28 to 400mm lens. I'm going to try it out. It's going to be one of the first times I've used it. I use it once more for a video that you can check out here, but I want to talk about the difference between lots of focal lengths and a prime lens. Right, let's go. I'm back in my studio. I looked at the footage from this video and I wasn't going to post it. I was just going to scrap it and not have a video this Sunday. But then I realised that this is the reality of photography. You don't always go out and get a banger. Quite often, and more than often, 90% of the time I'd say, I'm disappointed with what I get. Anyway, I'm showing it and then I'll talk a little bit more about it at the end of the video. This is me. I'm a dad who's actually 87, so he did pretty well, walking up a hill in the Lake District. And it's sort of mid-morning and I'm talking all about the importance of a prime lens and something like a 28 to 400, which is the lens I've got on me. Okay, enjoy. Chat more later. So I've got with me the 28 to 400mm lens, and there's often talk about, is it best to have a prime or a really wide zoom? And I sort of want to explore that and explain, the sort of benefits of both really. And at the end, I'll tell you what I think's the best for landscape photography. It's going to be interesting today as well because it's quite harsh light, but we've got some clouds, so hopefully we'll get a little bit of dappled light and I'll be able to pick some interesting scenes out. It's beautiful here though. It's absolutely beautiful all around here, and I've just stopped because I've just seen these sort of collection of silver birches here. I'm not 100% sure whether this is going to work or not, but I quite like the stone wall at the back, and I've probably taken this shot before I think. And then this silver birch, I quite like the sort of greens and silvers. I love this time of year where you've just got this sort of really sort of broken down colour palette of just green tones that are almost all the same, and then the silver birch is going through it and the silver walls. I think it looks really good. It's a really good way of simplifying a shot, especially with woodland photography as well. So I don't think it's the best shot in the world, but I'll show you the shot and see what you think. I'm hoping it stays sort of a little bit overcast like this and we just get sort of bursts of light through, because at the top I think that'll look really good. So this image was edited with my woodland presets, which currently there is an offer on, link in the description below, but you can see here the before and after. I used Borrowdale and I think it worked pretty well. What a view. So the 28 to 400, I don't want to talk too much about the gear. I want to talk more about the reason that you might take one of these lenses over a prime. I'll talk more about a prime later on because I feel like that makes you more decisive. It constricts your creativity, which often can be really good. But with a zoom lens like this, it's almost like you've got a blank piece of paper. You can do whatever you want. And I think that's got real benefits and also some negatives, we should talk about as we get a little bit higher. So the negative side of having all those focal lengths is that you just spray and pray. You're shooting everything, you're not really thinking about it. But I think if you're careful and think about what sort of mind you want to be in. Do you want to be in a more creative mind where you've got the options to do whatever you want? Or do you want to be constrained and just, really work on compositions for a fixed focal length? I think that it isn't that negative as long as you don't spray and pray. And when we get to the top, I'm going to explain how I go about thinking more carefully about what focal lengths to use to avoid that. So here I used 140mm just to compress the scene a little bit. I think it worked really well, and even at f13 the foreground is still slightly out of focus, which I think is good because it was a little bit distracting. So if you just concentrate on one focal length, then immediately, you know, foregrounds like these rocks here are just taken out of the equation. You don't have to think about them, which means that, you know, you can concentrate and really improve your skills at that one focal length. I need to improve my skills about this gimbal controlling at the moment. Let me see if it can lock on me. And that is really useful because you can obviously, you know, I've got to say I go for 200mm here, then I can think, okay, well, you know, shooting these foreground rocks is not going to work, but I could focus like I've got here on these background mountains. This is Harrison Stickle, and try and pick out something and know when I'm walking along that I'm always looking for those things. And I like doing that. I really do. I think that's a really valid thing. But I think I prefer it when I've got that choice, because what happens if, when you're walking, something amazing comes, you've got some amazing foreground, that is really, really worth taking advantage of. So I think what's really important is just to still have purpose when you have that wide focal range, like 28 to 400, which is super wide. And we'll talk a little bit more about the lens and the quality of the images when we look at them later. I'm not going to get any amazing images, it's the middle of the day, but it's still interesting. But I think if you have purpose with that lens, if you know what the 28mm is for, what the 70mm is for, and how you're going to use it, then you're not just spraying and praying. So, you know, the longer lens, the 200 to 400, is good for just picking out those little details, maybe where the sun's just catching a tree, or the lake, as you can see in the distance, and how it's reflecting the light. The wide angle you really want to use with purpose. You want to have a really strong foreground in there. Whereas if you're with a prime, and you've maybe got 50mm, then you're going to really be thinking very carefully about almost like how your visual sight is, how you see. And just being really purposeful about how you use that. And that is good to get you better at those focal lengths, I think. But when you really start to improve, then having that wider focal length is good. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but it's what I think. I am so impressed with the quality of this lens. It's slightly soft in the corners, but the rest of the image is super sharp. I am so impressed with it. I think you've got to think of the wider lens as it can be a training aid. It's good if you want to just experiment with different focal lengths, but it's never going to constrain you because you're always going to be tempted to use those different focal lengths. But if you're just going out doing photography, coming on a hike where you want to get the best shot, I feel like having all those focal lengths is so beneficial, especially when you're hiking and you want something light. But the prime lens can improve your compositional skills at certain focal lengths because it constrains you, and I think that's got benefits in its own right. But I would never just take a prime lens to a location like this, because I might miss something, the most amazing thing that's happening, like is happening over there where the light's just hitting the water. So you've just got to think of them as two different things, and depending on your mindset, you've got to then choose what you want to go out with. Do you want to improve your photography, maybe constrain yourself, improve your compositions? Then the prime lens is pretty good. Do you want to get the best photo? I think having that wide range of focal lengths is the best thing to go for. Right, let's see what else we can find now. Okay, so there's a really interesting shot here. I've just taken actually of there's a boat, you can just see it coming down here and the light's reflecting really nicely off the lake. I think when you've got light like this that's quite flat, you've got to look at sort of contrast within the scene. And I feel like, you know, the sun's quite overhead, but I've got a real lot of contrast there just reflecting off the lake, which looks absolutely fantastic. The light was just on this hill before as well, just at the bottom of the image, which I thought looked good. You've got to be careful when the light's like this, that you don't have the sun behind you, because it can come really flat and your eye has got nowhere to go in the image. But I think this looks good. I'll take this and see what else I can find. It's 100mm, I've got this at 105.
I actually think this image is half decent. What I like is the clouds. I love it when you have these darker clouds that you can put at the top of your image to bring your eye back into the image. And then that boat and the contrast down the lake, I think works quite well. Okay, I really want to talk about this. Before I do that, I just wanted to thank Squarespace, who are sponsoring this week's video. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform that allows you to build your own websites. I've talked about it so many times before, but I cannot stress how important it is to be in control of your own photos. You can create galleries, you can sell your own photos, whether it's your first print. A calendar is a great idea at this time of year. You can do all that through Squarespace, and they take control of all the payment options, and it just makes it really easy for anybody without any technical skills. So if you're looking to set up your domain or website, then head over to squarespace.com/Nigel to get 10% off, or use offer code Nigel. And if you do use that offer code, then that really helps the channel. The photos were okay. There were nothing groundbreaking. I had an amazing time with my dad. It's fantastic to get out with my dad, who's 87 and literally couldn't believe it. Yeah, he's fit as a fiddle. I hope I'm like that when I'm his age. But the thing is that I'll talk a little bit more about the lenses, but I think photography is good because it's hard. You know, it's not easy, and you know, sometimes you get amazing shots in the middle of the day, don't get me wrong, but the majority of the time you've got to get up early, you've got to stay out late. I've quite often camped on mountains like that to get good shots. It doesn't come easy, and I didn't go out to show that, but I think the key thing is with this video is it shows that I just don't always get great shots. These are just average shots where I'm just snapping, really. The thing is with the lenses though, I feel like, and that was a perfect example where it probably would have been better in hindsight to go out with the prime lens, because I knew I wasn't going to get anything amazing, so it would have been better just to practice my skills. If I was going out knowing there was going to be amazing light, if there was going to be an inversion or something like that, then this 28 to 400mm lens is an all-in-one lens. It would have done everything for me. Okay, it's not quite wide enough, but I think that's really good when you know the conditions are going to be great, because you know that then you've got the tools to get the shot that you need. There might be a tree that just appears in the mist, or there might be a wide angle shot that you need to get. Whereas with the prime lens, you could take it, but you know, you're risking, I think, missing something. However, it is good to practice with both of these lenses, because this allows you to experiment at different focal lengths all the time. But really importantly, I think a prime lens allows you just to stick to one focal length, not worry about it. And one of the things that really helps with is composition, because you're then forced to just move. You can't just zoom in and out. I see so many people just put, and I did this, put camera on a tripod, try and get the shot, and then just zoom in or out to get the shot. But if you have a prime lens and you're not all quite in shot, you've got to move backwards and forwards. And then when you start moving with your feet rather than just with your tripod or just zooming in and out, you just start to uncover things in composition that you just didn't know existed. One of the biggest things I find in composition is just moving your camera, maybe just 6 inches one way or the other, can make such a big difference. I feel like when you've got a prime lens, you're more likely to do that. And there's loads of other advantages, because if you're just going out focusing on one focal length, you get better at that focal length. You start to see things in that focal length, and it's just, especially for things like woodland, it's amazing. Anyway, I hope you did enjoy that video. Just let me know in the comments whether it was worth posting it or not, because if everyone goes, well, actually, I prefer to see your best photos or whatever, then I won't do anything like this again. But if I know that that's not a bad thing, then maybe I can do some other things a little bit along these lines, where I just go out and experiment a bit more. Anyway, I just want to remind everybody that Close to Calm is still available. There are, I think there's 2 or 3 signature and collector's editions left, and there's a few hundred of the limited editions left. If you want one for Christmas, or you're getting a gift for Christmas, then I honestly think they'll probably, realistically, they'll probably sell out around September time, I should think, based on my other book sales. Anyway, thanks for everyone that has bought one. I really appreciate it.
Anyway, that's it for this week. I'll leave you with some footage of me trying to fly my Mini 4 Pro drone in that wind.